The Health Ministry of Gaza reported that the number of Gazans murdered since October 7th has risen to 31,045, whereas 72,654 people have been injured. One of the main union forces in Panama, Suntracs, denounced the terrorist attack against the union's headquarters and the systematic persecution of its leaders. And from Poland, there is a report about the country's foreign minister saying that some North Atlantic Treaty Organization member countries have sent troops to Ukraine. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Sunday, the Health Ministry of Gaza reported that the number of Gazans murdered since October 7th has risen to 31,045, whereas 72,654 people have been injured. Over the last 24 hours, they also report that Israeli occupation forces have committed 8 massacres against families in Gaza, killing 85 Palestinians and injuring 130 others. But Palestinian officials record that still many victims remain under the rubble as the Israeli occupation forces deliberately prevent ambulances and civil defense crews from reaching the affected sites. The ministry reiterated that 72% of Palestinian victims are women and children, adding that the number of Palestinians killed by malnutrition and dehydration has risen to 25. As Muslims around the world get ready for Ramadan, extreme hunger is spreading in Gaza. United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees representative Philippe Lazzarini commented on X that with the holy month of Ramadan approaching, worshippers in Gaza need a respite to have some peace of mind. He's advocating for what he considers to be a long overdue ceasefire. In this sense, Lazzarini stated that for the people of Gaza, Ramadan comes as extreme hunger spreads, displacement continues, and fear plus anxiety prevail amid threats of military operations on Rafah. Afterwards, he continued highlighting that this month should bring a ceasefire for those who have suffered the most. On Saturday, Sweden, another top donor to the United Nations Agency to aid Palestinian refugees, said it would resume funding weeks after over a dozen countries halted hundreds of millions of dollars of support in response of Israeli allegations against UNRWA. As we speak, a ship carrying tons of humanitarian aid should be setting sail from Cyprus to Gaza after international donors launch a sea corridor to supply the besieged territory facing widespread hunger after 5 months of war. Sweden's funding decision follows a similar move by the European Union and Canada after UNRWA warned that it could collapse and leave Gaza's already desperate population of over 2 million people with even less medical and food assistance. In this context, residents of Gaza wait for the arrival of 8 ships on the shore near Gaza City, although authorities have stated that airdrops are not a suitable solution for the situation imposed by Israel.
I've been waiting since this morning for the humanitarian aid to reach the sea line, and many people are wondering about the American ship that has started to race to the shore of the Gaza Sea. So I've been waiting since this morning because tomorrow is the start of the holy month of Ramadan, and the situation is quite tragic.
Palestinian authorities have warned of a slowdown in the construction sector following the start of Israel's aggression on October 7, 2023. According to the Central Statistics Office, the number of construction licenses issued in the Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories during the last quarter of 2023 fell by 26%. The Statistics Bureau also warned of a 24% drop in new housing construction during the same period in 2023. Meanwhile, data from United Nations indicates that home demolitions by the Israeli army have caused the displacement of almost 1,000 people in the West Bank and of over 65,000 in the Gaza Strip. In Palestine, dozens of people, mostly women and children, are succumbing to dehydration and malnutrition due to the Israeli blockade to entry the food. Medical sources reported the death of a young woman and a 2-month-old baby due to the famine Palestinians are currently subjected to. The number of deaths due to malnutrition only reflects the cases that reach the hospitals. It does not take into account those who died in their homes. The Israeli siege further complicates the humanitarian situation of extreme shortages of food supplies, water, medicine and fuel.
We're on regular days and we can barely get water, so what about the upcoming Ramadan? That's a general problem. In the camp we have sick children who need sugars and proteins. Our children are getting dizzy. I swear for the last 5 months we haven't seen a single egg or meat. The sweet things arrive scarcely.
Social organizations in the Netherlands have denounced the presence of Israeli President Isaac Herzog at the opening ceremony of the National Holocaust Museum. The presence of the Israeli president was taken as a provocation by thousands of people who took to the streets of the city of Amsterdam to express their support for the Palestinian people. They crowded the vicinity of the National Holocaust Museum to demand that the Israeli president be immediately arrested on the grounds of what they say are war crimes against the people of Gaza. In Lebanon, an Israeli attack left at least 5 people killed and 9 wounded. According to local sources, Israel launched 2 missiles into a house in Kirbit Selm town. The attack claimed the lives of Marish family's father, his wife, his 2 children and another person. Ambulance and relief teams work at the scene to recover the bodies and transport them to the government hospital in Tibninin. The bombardment also resulted in 9 people injured, in addition to the total collapse of the house and heavy losses of dozens surrounding homes. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In the early morning of this Sunday, one of the main union forces in Panama, Suntracs, denounced the terrorist attack against the union's headquarters and the systematic persecution of its leaders. Suntracs accused the Canadian company First Quantum and the Panamanian government of conducting criminal proceedings against its leaders and the organization, as well as the arbitrary closure of its bank accounts by the general manager of the saving bank. The entity also noted that the security team detected an intruder in their offices while they were holding an internal union meeting and urged the national government to protect and guarantee the end of the union persecution. In Haiti, violence escalates. Armed men attacked public institutions throughout Port-au-Prince, the country's capital. Heavy shootings were reported on Friday night in several areas of the capital and near the National Palace. According to local reports, armed groups carried out simultaneous attacks against several police stations and reportedly burned the Interior Ministry. At the same time, criminal elements attacked the walls of the international airport to allow the access of individuals to the runway. The Haitian government declared a state of emergency for 1 month in the Western Department and a curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. until March 10th. Brazil's Supreme Federal Court has sentenced another 15 people involved in the January 8, 2023 coup attempt against all 3 branches of government. The Supreme Court issued verdicts on each defendant individually, with sentences ranging from 3 to 17 years in prison. They were convicted for overriding the democratic rule of law, qualified damage, attempted coup d'etat, deterioration of declared patrimony, and criminal association. To this date, with this latest ruling, so far 131 people have been sentenced on the January 8 case. In Argentina, President Javier Milei reverses decree to increase executive salaries. On Saturday, Milei informed that he will revoke the decree establishing the increase of his salary and that of hierarchical officials in the executive branch by almost 50%. Appealing to this anti-caste discourse, the president blamed former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner for the measure. However, the salary increase he granted to himself and his cabinet was implemented through Decree 206 of 2024. This regulation had been signed on February 28th by the president himself, together with the Chief of Staff, Nicolás Posse, and the Minister of Human Resources, Sandra Petovelo. Argentina's National Meteorological Service has issued a yellow warning for high temperatures in 8 provinces of the country. The meteorological agency reported that east of Salta Province, Formosa, northeast of Chaco, among other provinces, are in extremely hot temperatures. Such situation places vulnerable populations at risk, such as elderly adults, children, and patients with chronic illness. Therefore, the Health Ministry recommends increasing water intake, avoiding exposure to the sun, wearing light clothing, and staying in ventilated areas. In France, the rains, winds, and floods associated to Cyclone Monica have left 6 people missing and thousands without electricity. Guard Department authorities say rescue workers are searching for the missing persons after 3 vehicles were swept away by the waters. Officials say the power outage is currently affecting 1,800 homes in the departments of Drôme and Ardèche, areas which experience winds of over 130 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, the meteorological agency has issued an orange alert to dozens of territories due to the risk of flooding. In Indonesia, floods have killed at least 19 people and 7 others are reported missing in the west of the country. The tragedy is taking place in the Indonesian province of Western Sumatra due to the intense rainfall reported since last Thursday. For their part, local authorities explain that the rescue work is complicated since the victims are not only swept away by the strong currents of the overflowing rivers but are also buried during the landslides. Likewise, it was reported that the strong currents damaged 16 bridges and several houses, as well as cut off traffic on roads, affecting the delivery of humanitarian aid. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break and go away. Welcome back. In the Vatican City, Pope Francis urged Ukraine to engage in dialogue to reach a lasting solution to the ongoing conflict with Russia. In an interview, the Supreme Pontiff urged Kyiv to initiate a suspension of hostilities in the light of an accurate observation of the situation and with a view towards the well-being of the civilian population. He also called for a ceasefire and urged the assessments of negotiations to achieve a truce and an end to the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. On this point, referring to any war situation, he emphasized that dialogue is the way to achieve a fair and lasting peace with the support of international powers. The government of Italy warned that NATO's sending troops to support Ukraine would represent the end of diplomacy. This was stated by the Italian Minister of Defense, Guido Crosetto, regarding the France and Poland statements about a possible sending of NATO troops to Ukraine. Nations cannot speak on behalf of the multinational organization, which, in his view, has stayed out of the conflict. Crocero considers that taking troops to Kyiv would be a step towards a unidirectional aggression that would eliminate the path of diplomacy. From Poland, there is a report about the country's foreign minister saying that some North Atlantic Treaty Organization member countries have already sent troops to Ukraine. Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski has been referred saying that NATO soldiers are already in Ukraine, and he warmly thanked the ambassadors of the countries willing to take that risk. However, Polish President Andrzej Duda said that so far there has been no such declaration from his government, but he did not rule out the possibility of providing military assistance to Ukrainian forces. NATO troops from France, Sweden, Finland and Italy are conducting an amphibious joint operation in Fjord in the northern Norway as part of NATO's Nordic Response Drill, the largest of its kind since 1988, which will run until March 14th.
It's very important. We have kind of a saying of to secure peace is to prepare for war, and I feel like that describes the situation very well.
In Nigeria, relatives of children abducted by criminal groups demand answers from authorities. The parents and other relatives denounced the provincial authorities' delay in investigating to find the children's whereabouts. The minors were extracted during the armed group's raid at their school last Thursday. The local police assured they suspect irregular groups operating in the area are responsible for the kidnapping of children, and they carry out these kinds of actions to request ransom. The gunmen forced their way into the school premises in the Sokoto village of Gidan Bakuso in the country's northwest and started firing shots sporadically, waking and causing panic among the pupils, according to school officials. Senegal's presidential candidates kicked off their election campaigns after weeks of protests over President Macky Sall's decision to delay the process. The 19 candidates for the presidency of the African nation have a shorter deadline to gather supporters ahead of the elections scheduled for March 24th. This happened after Senegal's Constitutional Council, which is the country's electoral body, rejected the 10-month postponement of the elections announced by President Macky Sall. This event triggered a series of violent protests which aroused the concern of the international community about the democratic stability of the nation. Members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, agreed to strongly promote economic cooperation. The agreement comes within the framework provided by the adoption of 14 initiatives proposed by Laos in its condition of pro-tempore president for the intergovernmental organization, which focus on the recovery and connection between the economies of the area, as well as on the creation of an inclusive and sustainable future. At the meeting, the ministers also discussed how to improve existing Asian agreements on trade of goods, on digital economy issues related to competition, among others. The adoption of this program took place during the 30th restricted meeting of Asian economic ministers held on March 8th and 9th. At least 60 countries in the world will implement the so-called daylight saving time from this Sunday onwards. Countries like Cuba, Chile, Paraguay, Germany, Spain and others will set their clocks 1 hour ahead with the intention of making better use of daylight. This change is made every second Sunday of March due to the arrival of what is known as boreal summer. Experts point out that this schedule allows energy saving by taking advantage of sunlight. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.